We are in 2021. A final assessment of progress toward achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals is underway. Successfully scaled farmer-led irrigation has made a significant contribution to this progress. Why? Investors, governments, and farmers had acted on past research that had found that Africa can only feed itself if the countries either radically accelerate yield improvement or massively expand land areas with associated greenhouse gas emissions and biodiversity loss, or increase the dependency on food imports yet further. Among these choices, they all decided to go for radically accelerated yield improvements, which required substantial investment in agriculture research, but also a much better enabling environment for farmers to get access to irrigation technologies and direct support to build capacity for smart irrigation management. The enabling environment that helped scale irrigation included more secure water and land rights, economic incentives to use water more efficiently, and better governance for more sustainable groundwater use. As a result, the landscape today includes a mosaic of rain-fed and irrigated farms. Both larger and smaller systems coexist, but most women and men farmers operate their own systems, either alone or in small groups, using clean energy technologies to lift water to irrigate high-value crops such as fruits, vegetables, or tree nuts. Agricultural landscapes are well connected with services that provide agriculture inputs and finance. Microfinance institutions now like to lend to irrigators because they have come to learn that climate risks are minimal and that repayment of loans is easier with a second crop during the dry season. Increased irrigation also supports the establishment of more processors in rural areas that we can now see everywhere, as well as better markets and buyers that farmers can choose from to get the best price for the hard labor that they supply for a living income. We have come far in the paradox that once characterized many rural areas in sub-Saharan Africa of why does the farmer remain hungry is slowly becoming history.
Les producteurs seront actifs toute l'année, contrairement à la situation actuelle où ils ne travaillent que pendant 3-4 mois de l'année. La production agricole sera plus importante et plus diversifiée en légumes et en tubercules pour faire face aux besoins nutritionnels. Aussi, l'augmentation prévisible des quantités produites offrira une réelle opportunité aux femmes d'accroître leurs revenus. Il est impératif que ce développement se fasse à travers l'irrigation par pompage solaire, afin que les producteurs n'aient pas à supporter des coûts de combustibles fossiles qui contribuent aussi à la pollution de l'environnement. De plus, l'irrigation est une réponse à la variabilité du régime de la pluviométrie. Elle permet le développement de nouveaux systèmes de production, contribue à la lutte contre la désertification. Le développement de l'irrigation offre donc une multitude d'opportunités en termes de résilience et de durabilité. Les résidus agricoles pourraient être valorisés comme bioénergie.
I do think that we'll have in front of us a patchwork. A patchwork meaning that we would have been able to bring to the farmers and to the potential adopters a diversity of options to really respond to their very specific needs. And in that case, that would mean that we would have been successful to deal with two very important points. The first one is the heterogeneity, and the second one is the risk and the uncertainty. So heterogeneity, because there is a variety of farmers and potential adopters in terms of their wealth, but also in terms of their needs because of the market access, because of the demand, because of the hydrology, the geology of their very specific location of their plot, actually. Diversity in terms of the policy environment in which they are investing, of the security in which they are putting their investment. So all of those has to be taken into account to come with very specific solution that will fit one specific farmer and not a one-fit-all solution. It is risky to invest in sub-Saharan Africa, and it is therefore risky to invest in irrigation for farmers for a variety of reasons, being climate change, low cost, security again, hydrology, geology, etc. So all those has to be taken into account if we want to upscale farmer-led irrigation. And that's where the government and the policymakers has a role to play, because they're risking those investments is actually in their hands and not necessarily in the hand of the farmers.
Successful farmer-led irrigation will be achieved if, first of all, government agriculture production statistics include and underscore the share from farmer-led irrigation in the total agricultural production. This should also be translated in monetary terms to highlight how much from the total production comes from farmer-led irrigation. Second, to achieve the first, government should map in their respective countries where farmer-led irrigation currently takes place, and also map new areas where there is potential for it to be developed. If government acknowledge the contribution from farmer-led on total agricultural production, I think that adequate policies and incentives can be put in place. The profile from farmers will not change as such, apart from farmers being able to increase their revenues and profits, since they will be using irrigation and other yield-enhancing agricultural inputs. I also think that since farmers will be in charge, we are more likely to have, long-lasting irrigation schemes compared with schemes developed by the government.
In 10 years, if we want to transform to a profitable, reliable, and sustainable irrigation system, we need to generate improved agriculture policies, reliable market, and technical options that would help investors and partners to invest in smallholder irrigation schemes. A switch to a more advanced irrigation technology in sub-Saharan Africa, including Rwanda, would have a huge positive impact on smallholder farmers, where it could double or triple their food production in all season, hence generating a reliable income. Rwanda also has a policy that encourages land consolidation, where it has resulted in different benefits, including better crop yield, access to seed and fertilizers. In 10 years, if we're able to have a better land consolidation system, this can facilitate the entry for smallholder farmers in dynamic sectors for national, regional, and international market, as they can sufficiently supply for the market with commercial farming. With land consolidation, there's also a need for programs such as awareness and capacity building, facilitating the creation of farmer groups to ensure a minimum optimum scale and the control of quality and sustainable food systems.
FLEED is much more developed, particularly through the small-scale irrigation subsidy program, with government support of 50% subsidy on SSI kit costs. Small-scale farmers having land of 1 to 10 hectares are eligible to the 50% subsidy, where they could also mobilize their own cash equivalent to the same 50% to access the SSIT kit. The government usually mobilizes about $1 million annually, and private farmers mobilize almost the same amount to access the SSIT equipment. In Rwanda, FLEED is much more concentrated in eastern and southern part of the country, where small-scale farmers particularly grow horticulture crops. And we've seen nowadays that they are much more becoming commercial farmers who could, where they could grow also and irrigate hybrid maize seed through a kind of contract farming arrangement. Report from the government show a target of 25,000 hectares by 2024, which would increase by 2030 with more private financing.
If we see greater scale of farmer-led irrigation, it will be part of a growth of an entire system of knowledge held by farming communities. Irrigation is part of a package of knowledge held by farmers and will not be scaled without building on a foundation of tacit skills and social networks. This foundation includes local farmers holding knowledge on how to grow crops best suited for irrigation, such as rice and vegetables, a social network of traders in these crops, and existing role models that have proven that irrigation is possible. There are so many pieces of local knowledge that go into successful irrigation that outsiders don't know and can't train farmers on, but this knowledge accumulates in communities and is continuously refined. Imagine living and growing up in a community with this foundation versus one without it, where hearing about irrigation on the radio is the best you can hope for. Of these two, where will scale be possible? The challenge of scaling farmer-led irrigation is to understand how to spread this foundation of knowledge between communities.
Successful scaling of farmer-led irrigation to me means two key things. One is knowledge, and second is access to finance. What I'd like to see in the next 10 years is that the farmers in sub-Saharan Africa are more knowledgeable in terms of understanding the benefits of irrigation and how it can help to build their climate resilience. And second is a better understanding of the irrigation technologies that are in the market, and they'll be able to select what is appropriate for their use. And second is also they will understand how to operate them and maintain the irrigation equipment. When it comes to access to finance, I think first of all, what would be good to see in the next 10 years is our farmers gradually transforming from subsistence farming to commercial agriculture. This means they can increase their incomes, put aside some savings, and the savings will help them to raise that initial capital that is required to procure the irrigation equipment. Second, it builds their credit worthiness, and they can access credit and be able to increase their production or alternatively intensify their production.
For me, what is a successful scaling of farmer-led irrigation in sub-Saharan Africa is when farmers can easily access, adapt, and robust technologies in which they can trust that they will generate revenues on the long term with no hidden costs. So that means when farmers can overcome the initial investment cost to acquire the technologies, such as solar pumps or irrigation systems. For this reason, I believe it is important to rethink access of credit by adapting interest rates and repayment horizons to seasonal nature of the harvest and the farmer's income. This comes with the development of local actors able to set up stable supply chains, to offer adapted financial tools, to ensure the training of technicians and after-sales services. Therefore, if I look at the market level, successful scaling would mean an ecosystem with distributors, financial institutions working hand in hand with farmers' cooperatives.
Over the years, more young, youthful farmers and middle-aged will be involved in the urban agriculture, where farmers will use all kinds of water resources that are available. At the moment, farmer-led irrigation development is being made possible because there is access to land, access to water, and cheap technologies that contribute to farmer-led irrigation development. Finances remain a limiting factor in the sector. Of course, with government support, this is likely to change. Currently, farmer-led irrigation development is opportunistic in that there is market and easy access to land and water resources, which provide opportunities for farmers to invest and develop infrastructure that will pay off. But over time, access to land and water resources will be a limiting factor. Of course, the increased demand for food will continue to drive the need for farmer-led irrigation development.
When I look 10 years into the future, successful farmer-led irrigation in sub-Saharan Africa means that we are not fighting against other issues or problems arising as a result of adopting irrigation. Such problems could be overexploitation and pollution of water, land, and energy resources, increase in waterborne diseases, increase in household conflicts, lack of market for these products that are being grown, and so on. Successful farmer-led irrigation in sub-Sahara means in 10 years into the future involves everyone. This means that social status, income, social safety network, and gender are not barriers for farmers to engage in irrigation. And this means that irrigation, especially for smallholder farmers, is not a privileged solution. In 10 years to come, I hope to see a shift in irrigation technology as well as access to that technology, whereby you can see gender and knowledge factors are included in the technology designs. For example, considering that women, especially in sub-Saharan African countries, have limited time for farming activities because they must attend to other household responsibilities, successful farmer-led irrigation means that there is irrigation technology that allows women to take charge of irrigation and be able to attend to the other household responsibilities efficiently. And on top of that, they can afford it.